Hello. Today I'm going to dive for you a green drake soft hackle. And I know we get all excited about the huge flies that come off, and I think they're green and gray and brown drakes, but essentially this is just a soft hackle and you can tweak the size and materials to match almost anything. But we are going to do today's on a size 10 Mustad hook. I'm going to use the barred Mallard wood duck flank feather as our tail. Going to use a little bit of that boot lace that we've been using lately for a shock. Some rabbit fur for a thorax in the body. And I'm going to use two different hackle feathers. That was a blue dun neck, Indian neck, and this is a patch from a partridge. And I'm going to find some larger soft hackles on those patches, and we'll hold it all together with some ultra thread. So here we've got the hook and the vise. And we'll start the thread. It's become my new habit to leave a little room up there by the eye of the thread. It kind of reminds me of to make sure I stop and don't crowd the eye. And there are some of those, they're Mallard dyed wood duck, little bundle of fibers, and I'm going to use those. This huge soft hackle has a long tail that's going to wave around, and we want some movement and some length here. And to be honest, I think there are a species of bugs that come off and they are really large. Um, I don't know that I've ever been in a full-blown hatch, but I have seen them here and there on the waters, certain bigger waters in Pennsylvania. There's a little bit of the sulphur strand of the boot lace, and I'm going to get that tied down and get a couple of wraps on it. And if you didn't see it in the other video, this stuff is like I said, I think it's a trilobal fiber. It floats a little bit. It kind of works like our polypropylene that we use, that we buy on cards in different colors. And I salvaged it from an old bootlace. So, and we got it tied in. I pulled it. I want it to be about even with the bend of the hook. So that fade away was me resetting. I kind of bumped the camera, and in the editing process, I lost the few wraps where I just wrapped down the butt ends of the tail and the shuck. But I have the thread just in front of the hook point. I'm going to put some rabbit dubbing on here. I try to pick out most of the guard hairs. And what I'm really after here is just some soft fuzz. In fact, when I wrap this, I'm not even trying to butt the turns, one on top of the other or right together. I'm almost leaving a little space here. I think once this gets a little worn and a little wet, we're going to see some of that olive thread, the olive ultra thread show through. And so we'll make our body. The other thing we lost, and I apologize for that, is that I tied in a double strand of some of that pale dun thread, tying thread, and I'm just going to, it's in a loop, and I'm just going to twist that up and use it for a rib. Going to counter rib this body so it doesn't sink in and become invisible. So we used up the rest of that dubbing. We're going to put a little ball of dubbing there anyways to kind of keep the hackle fibers propped up. But we threw a whip finish in. We're going to get the thread out of the way. There I came in with my shepherd's hook, and I'm going to spin up that thread. And I want to get it nice and tight here. I want it to be like a cord. If I had thicker thread in this color, I may have used it. And again, you can change colors and the color of the dubbing and whatever you think you need to kind of match the naturals in your area. So we're just going to space these wraps out. A lighter body and a dark thread for a rib works great. You can use wire. These fly, I like to fish these flies just under the surface, not necessarily real deep. And if they float for a little while and then kind of sink and get wet, I think that works okay. So I'll get that rib tied down, kind of get it out of the way here and lift it up so I can snip off the excess. And we'll come back here and add some more dubbing. Now here I don't care if I get the guard hairs in. This is going to be the front end, the thorax, and a little fuzz and a little legginess to kind of fill in around the hackle fibers will be that I think it'll be more appealing for a fish who may think it's food instead of my bug puppet. So I made a short noodle of that, about 3 inches long, and we'll go back over and right where I either started or ended that thread is where I want this ball, this thorax to be. So I'll come in with the first hackle, and again, you can change these. I'm going to use something like nondescript, maybe a little dun colored. Um, wet fly can look like anything from an emerger to something spent to something that died in the process of hatching. So you may want to tailor the color to whatever part of the cycle you're trying to match, or in this case, this is kind of generic. So I block my shot of snipping off the stem there. And we'll get a hold of that short hackle with the hackle pliers. I bought some tools on the internet once, and they threw those hackle pliers in there. I didn't know they were coming, and I don't know. They're a teardrop hackle plier. They still sell them. They're kind of old school and odd. There's a lot of new fancy stuff out there, and I have probably one of each, but for a lot of things, I just like these. So we'll angle the tip of the feather and cross over and get a couple of wraps there to hold things down. And that's pretty leggy. I know there are spiders and other small soft hackles. We're only aiming for a few legs or a few hackle fibers, but in this case, and because of the size, I think extra works just fine. I'll wrap back over them a little bit to get everything angled back. And we left ourselves enough space for the second hackle. Now this hackle's from a partridge skin. I divided that partridge skin up into patches. I kind of cut it up, and so the larger flies or the feathers are in one little package, and the smaller stuff that I use, the real good stuff I have in another package, and so on. And you get these big feathers, and no, I was not always sure how to use them, but they make a nice collar on a lot of wet flies or even on streamers. If I was a salmon fly guy, you could probably use some of it there. So I threw a couple of half hitches under there instead of the whip. Just seemed convenient. And we'll get a hold of this feather and give it a couple of wraps, 2, maybe 3 at the most. And kind of just preen everything backwards as we go, wrapping forward. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've only found out how to lock the focus on the camera to a spot and not necessarily at a given point. So maybe that's some research I have to do, or maybe that's all my phone will do as a camera, but I can see where it goes out of focus and comes back in. So there are the tip ends, I guess, of that feather. We'll snip those off, push everything else back. Yeah, I can hold it back and build a nice little head. Now this is only 70 denier, I think. It was ultra thread, so it for me, especially being left-handed, it kind of unwinds and lays real flat when I use it. And for certain flies, and in this case, I wrapped a real nice flat body, almost like a floss underneath, and then it's not bad for doing the head either. But I'll give it a spin before we put in the whip finish, cord it up just a little bit. And I was shooting for about a 5-turn whip finish, and I think as I worked my way to the front, I may have put an extra wrap or two. Somewhere I hit something that was a little sharp, and it frayed a few strands of that flossy thread. So don't try this trick at home, folks, but I've kind of done it before, even on camera. But I just kind of pull everything out of the way, singe off those real fine fibers, and I'm going to give that head a nice coat of head cement, Sally Hansen's, and I think it'll look like a new one when it's done. So I came in pretty hard with the Sally Hansen's. It'll soak into the front of that soft hackle a little bit. It makes me feel a little better when I see it soak in just a little bit, because I think it holds something better than it might. But hey, if this fly gets all chewed up and I have to throw it away after a fish or two, I'm okay with that. So make sure the eye's clear. That's the finished fly. Swing it. A lot of times we're all swinging like 1 or 2, 3 flies now. I like to put a big one in the front, maybe a little one behind it. Sometimes I switch it up. Zoom in and give you a good look, and it would be awful fun to catch trout on that guy, because you know the big hatch is on, the trout are eating them like crazy. So if you hung in there to the end and you want to learn more about me, look me up on Amazon. And until next time, be safe.